if we take the huge risk of being genuinely in relationships, like giving ourselves to relationships and to love and care, etc., right? All kinds of relationships. We are opening ourselves up also to the possibility of getting hurt or hurting other people. And so the thing is, this idea that like, I'm never going to cause harm, not just as an educator, but also as a person in relationships, that's going to happen. It's bound to happen if we really participate in relationships. So for me, what it really becomes about then is what kind of skills, strategies, and tools do we have to take accountability, to hold others accountable, to apologize, to repair when the ruptures have happened. That for me is where the sweet spot is at.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from all over the world to hear their personal journeys of self-discovery through the lenses of love, sex, and relationships.
Our mission is to show people that they're not alone and to inspire them to embrace their true selves so that together we can open minds and live authentically without shame.
We believe everyone's story is powerful and beautiful, yet it's important to remember that everyone does life a little bit differently and that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we aren't doctors. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 403. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have a beautiful conversation with Marla. They have been practicing non-monogamy for over 20 years, and as you'll see today, it's been quite a journey.
Yes, I absolutely love this conversation for so many reasons, and one of them is that I really love it when we get to talk to a therapist about their own relationship history. Marla is a therapist who focuses on working with non-monogamous and 2S LGBTQIA folks, and they dig deep into their own journey with us today and share so much wisdom.
As Finn mentioned, Marla is a therapist and an educator and is also about to become an author. Their new book is coming out in just a few days on August 1st, 2025. It's called Non-Monogamy and Defying a Paradigm. It's part of the More Than Two Essentials series from Thornapple Press, and you can pre-order now. You can also find a lot more about Marla's work on their website and on their Instagram. Links to all of Marla's work are over in our show notes on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, or in your podcast player.
One quick edit or one quick note that we want to talk about in the interview, we talk about how Marla's book is already published because we had planned to release this episode next week when their book would already be out. We didn't do that. It's out today. So the book is out in 2 days. Again, go pre-order it. And we also talk about a workshop that Marla is leading in our community called Reframing Hierarchy. That workshop, in the interview, we say it is tomorrow. It is not tomorrow. It is next week.
August 7th.
August 7th, because we published this a week early. So sorry for all the confusion. You can find out more information about, again, Marla's book and the workshop in the podcast show notes over at normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the podcast tab.
And with that, for anyone who's a premium subscriber, we're going to jump into the interview with Marla now. And for anyone else, we're going to go through a few announcements. First up, if you're not familiar with the premium subscription, it's a way to skip these announcements up front. But don't worry, we still share important dates of upcoming events in the outro. To sign up for the premium subscription, go over to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, scroll down on the homepage, and you can sign up right there for $4 a month.
Next up, we want to remind you all about our community. We're not going to tell you about how it's full of over 300 incredible people from all over the world socializing and supporting one another all day, because we got more important things to talk about.
Yes, we do.
We kind of led off with it earlier when we were talking about Marla, but we have been hosting monthly workshops in our community. Those are free for all of our community members. Our next workshop is on August 7th. That is next week. It is called Reframing Hierarchy, and it is going to be taught by Marla. And as we mentioned, we host these workshops every month. We've got incredible workshops coming up the rest of the year on strengthening your connection through play, strengthening your personal agency, choosing a pleasure-based life, and so much more. Again, you can find out more information about all of these workshops over on our website. If you go to the community tab or drop down, you'll see a link there for workshops. We have listed all of the workshops for 2025 there. And you know what? If you're looking at those, you're like, oh man, I really missed one from like March or April. Don't worry. Once you're a member, you get to watch the recordings of all of our previous workshops, and you get to be part of all of the upcoming workshops, all for less than $8 a month.
We also are really excited about our upcoming community in-person retreat. It's coming up October 3rd to the 5th, 2025, in the San Francisco Bay Area. While you're over on our website in the community tab, Finn has put together a beautiful PDF.
Thank you.
That is a retreat guide for this weekend. It includes an itinerary and a lot more information, plus how to sign up. We would love to have you come join us. Again, this is going to be our upcoming in-person community retreat in October 3rd to the 5th, 2025.
So if you've been looking for ways to get more community in your life and you're like, oh, I'm so sick of being on Zoom. Why do Finn and Emma do everything on Zoom?
Come in person.
We don't. Come join us in person. We'd love to have you be out here and we'd love to meet you. Again, all of that information is under the community tab where you can find everything you could ever want to know.
And if you're missing something, you can always reach out to us, send us a voicemail, send us an email, ask us a question. We're here to answer those questions.
The last thing we want to tell you all about is our favorite way to get tested for STIs. That is stdcheck.com. We tell you about this every single week because we freaking love it. It's the service that Emma and I use, and we believe strongly in knowing your sexual health status so you can share that with potential partners. And STD Check is a fantastic way to do that. It's discreet, it's easy, and when you use the links on our website, you save $10, bringing the cost of a 10-panel test down to only $129, and you help support the podcast financially. So we are super grateful that you do that so we can keep coming to you every single week for free. So please check out the links over in the resources tab or down below in your podcast player show notes for more information on how to do that. And again, as Emma said, if you have any questions about that or our retreats or our workshops or anything else we've talked about today, please send us an email, send us a voicemail. We'd love to hear from you.
Including if you want to be a guest on the podcast.
Well, that's the most important reason to reach out to us is to come on the podcast like Marla.
Yes.
All right. I think we covered it all. And with that, it's time to go talk to Marla.
Let's go. Welcome to the podcast, Marla. We're so happy that you're here today. Thank you for making time out of your day and coming on and chatting with us. We're excited to get to know you better.
Absolutely. I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
We're excited to dig in. And nobody knows this, but we spent a while getting the tech set up and we're crushing it today.
We rocked it.
Now we're going to crush the interview today. So we would love to start by just having you introduce yourself for anybody who's not familiar with Marla.
Sure. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I am Marla. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a therapist and an educator and an author now, and specifically focused on healthy relationships, specializing in non-monogamous relationships. So that's really my big stuff is focusing in non-monogamy. I've been practicing it for over 20 years in my own life. And yeah, I think that's some of my main intro. Hi.
Hi.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. And we actually had a little brief stint of chatting that we learned that you and your partner and us basically jumped into non-monogamy almost around the same exact time and almost at the same phase of life. So
Yeah.
I'm excited
That's
to hear
pretty cool.
about your version of starting non-monogamy like
Yeah.
As a teenager.
as a teenager. So maybe take us back in time, Marla. What happened 20 years ago or so?
Yeah. It's what happened just over 20. So when I was 17, I was in school. So I'm from Montreal, Quebec in Canada, and they have a very different schooling system from the rest of the country where they have something called cégep. In English, you just would call it like college. It's an acronym for something I don't understand. But it's essentially, we end high school in grade 11, and then you do either a 2-year or a 3-year program in this like cégep or college. Now, essentially what it's like is it's kind of like going to university. Also, the legal drinking age is 18 in Quebec. So it's kind of like getting all your like shenanigans out of the way before your grades really count when you do go to university. At least that's how it was for me. So the thing is that it was a time of just like, so we were in this big university building, but it was like, we were just like teenagers. We were just like dumb, silly teenagers, highly defiant teenagers. And I remember having like my first serious like boyfriend when I was 17, a hot and heavy 2-year relationship with an absolute like dillweed of a human being. But in that time, I think back now and I'm like, oh, I was absolutely love bombed. But this person, said that he loved me. And I was like, I guess I love you too. I don't know. But all while that was happening, my bestie at the time in the same school with me was taking a class with this prof who was essentially, it was like an ethics class where this guy would come to class, drop a hot topic for the day. And I think the class was maybe like, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 hours, but he would essentially just like drop a topic and let the class debate. Like that was it. He would just sit back while and I know this because I later sat in on that class. I audited it just for fun.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to go debate and not have to write any assignments.
Yes.
And so, but my friend came back and she was just going on because this man was polyamorous and he was very involved in polyamorous community. He was an older, he was right at the edge of retirement. So he was like old school polyamorous, had 9 kids, 8 of whom were adopted. Like imagine like just dropping stuff on your class like that. So he
opening minds up.
Yes.
Opening minds up in like, I don't know. Anyway, I have lots to say about this man. Anyway, but like he ultimately is the reason I knew about polyamory, ever heard about it, right? Like this is before I had a smartphone. This is before I had I think technically the first edition of The Ethical Slut would have been out. How would I have even known? I didn't spend a lot of time in libraries between us squirrel friends, So my friend came out of these classes once a week, just going on like almost evangelically about the tenets of non-monogamy. Specifically at the time she was saying polyamory and open relationships, which were 2 words that we were honestly using interchangeably at the time. And for those who are not aware, those are not identical things anymore, at least. But she would come out and she had a monogamous boyfriend. But she would come out just like rip roaring because the ideology of non-monogamy makes a lot of sense on paper. And I mean, for many of us in lived reality, but like on paper, it's brilliant. And so the thing is that she would come out, she was convinced though. And I was like, whoa, like I hear you. Everything you're saying makes sense. But I am so seriously happy in my very hardcore monogamous relationship of at the time, maybe it would have been a month and a half with this dillweed that I have seriously committed to. But I hear what you're saying right?
Unfortunately, I'm in love right now. Sorry.
Well, I think I am, but I don't know for sure.
happens to the best of us.
Yes.
Sorry. Anyway, but it was one of those things that it got to the point where she was really, really like, she was getting convinced, even though I don't think that's what the prof was trying to do. But she was then also trying to convince me. And I was like, babe, like, I love you, but I'm doing my thing. It's not really what I want. It sounds very logical. Anyway, fast forward.
It sounds like she really wanted somebody to be in it with her too.
Yeah, I think she, like, I could go on about this friend, but like, she's super highly intelligent, but like, very, very stubbornly convicted. So it's like when she figured out the right thing, like fundamentally kind of judgy. And so when she judged something to be correct, I mean, like TLDR, she also went using this same framework to cheat on her boyfriend. So like, But
there's some nuance in there. Some nuance hadn't been figured out yet.
The joy of being 17. We were 17. Anyway. I get broken up with by Captain like Shitface after again 2 months. And I say Shitface for a million reasons, but like yeah, he was like not a super prize, but I was like confused. I was broken up with. I was so upset. And I was doing all the mopey things that one does. And then it took 8 months for me to find out from his girlfriend, his now girlfriend, that in fact they had been together for a year. And so I was invited to do the math. Math is not my strong suit, but it didn't take long for me to figure out that, in fact, I was the other partner. I was the, whatever it's called, I was the cheater. I had no idea, right? And so it hit me. I was like, oh my God. Like, not only was this person cheated on, who I thought was just like the most evil bitch in the world, until I was like, oh no, like I'm the biggest threat to you. Like, she must have found out. Anyway. So My immediate response, though, internally and then externally, when talking to that same friend I was talking about, is I was like, you know, if he wanted to like have sex with multiple people or like have multiple partners, I might have been down for it, but I was infuriated for having been deceived and lied to.
Yeah.
And it was in that moment that I was like, hold the phone. Like, so I'm actually pretty okay with the idea of multiple partnerships. The thing I'm not here for, and as we all know, like you don't have to be monogamous to cheat or lie or deceive. But I was like, oh, like I could have like been fucking all kinds of people and been okay with that, and vice versa. And so that was kind of the opening of the interest for me. And then, like, very fast forward, not that many months, when I met the partner that I'm still with today. Oh, sorry. When I fell in love, we had been friends for a long time, but when I fell in love by mistake with the partner that I'm still now married to, he was actually very clear that he couldn't be the like classic boyfriend, that like he wasn't available to talk on the phone every day, and that like we didn't want to be this like traditional thing we were seeing around us. And so when we started our he had also been there through the whole shenanigan from like the prior year, right? Like he was there for the whole thing because we were besties. And so that's when we both kind of decided that like, yeah, it would be better for both of us to just not do this thing monogamously. And I've never looked back.
Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing. And did you two like have any type of framework for it, or was it just
Yeah. How did it go?
Yeah, like we know we don't want to do that other bullshit. We're gonna do it different. But so how did you do it?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so we were lucky to have had, because not only did I have my friend, like, you know, what's it called? Like, sharing the gospel of non-monogamy with me. But by this time, right, because this all happened almost a year later from the whole, you know, fiasco prior. And at this point, I'd already sat in on that class with that prof. So I had learned some of the way people practice polyamory. Right now, again, this man was married with kids, and like he also loved dropping like almost like verbal clickbait, you know, like the kind of thing like he was very woo wow, you know. And so, but I had some idea of what non-monogamy could look like, and then I think what was helpful is that I was kind of seeing someone else very like loosely after very close in proximity for time to falling in love with this partner. And so, yeah, there was a certain amount of like crafting it together as we went. We made a bunch of mistakes. It was really, I think, as even now with all the research and like support that you can get, we all still make mistakes. Like I still make mistakes all the time. But yeah, there was a lot of like making it up as we go. And as new partners came into our lives and we had sort of new dynamics that we had to kind of interact with, I think that was definitely, there was a lot of creative management of the things, or even coming up with the language for what we wanted to be, like realizing that like the word love didn't feel good for us at the time in a specific way, and like what words do we use, and like all of that stuff. So yeah, there was a lot of figuring it out as we go.
Yeah. I actually really love that you say that, because I think there's something to, we talked to somebody recently who was talking about the polyamory PhD and how you can research and research and research, trying to almost research away your
Fears,
your insecurities, your feelings in many ways. And I think it's just so, it's really refreshing sometimes to talk to people who are like, we started this before there were really all of the, you know, the library of books and all of the resources, because you can go and read Polysecure as many times as you want, but that's not going to keep you from freaking out in the moment when your attachment shit gets stomped on. Right? Like it doesn't, you can't learn to swim by reading, right? You just
but
can't.
it's helpful.
It's helpful.
It's helpful.
Yeah.
Like I still encourage people to do it, and you can't learn everything.
I think I share this with people all the time because, again, right, like I do this work in therapy with folks. So in a very one-on-one where we are working on attachment and we are working on trauma, right, like in a much more individual way. But then there's also the education and the workshops and all the different, I've done peer support groups and stuff like that. And I think what's interesting is that, I always say relational wounds are healed best in relationship. And, I've known people to come out of really tough relationships. They become aware of some of their own, challenges, et cetera. And they take time. They're like, I'm going to be single for like 2 years and I'm going to do all this deep diving work and I'm going to go to the workshops and I'm going to do the therapy and all the self-help stuff. And they make amazing strides forward. And then they get into a new relationship. And all of those old wounds that they thought were done get kind of triggered. And I'm saying triggered let's say activated. The word triggered is very strategic or specific to trauma work. So I know we overuse it a lot, but I'm going to say activated, right? Those wounds get activated in relationships and sometimes trauma can be triggered, right? So, So yeah, I think it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B, ideally.
Yeah. I'm curious. I feel like we have a really fun opportunity here to talk to somebody who went through this and studies this. And so I'm curious, as you look back, maybe something that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we thought that was a good strategy, but also maybe something that you look back and you're like, we absolutely crushed it. And we didn't have a term for it. We just sort of intuitively went down the right path together.
Yeah. Oof. Okay. I'm going to need you to ask me one at a time. So I'm going to start with finding crushed it. And then you have to remind me about
I mean, I got you.
The things that I messed up, I can go on for days.
Totally.
I think what we really crushed was being real, being authentic with one another, not pretending we were okay when we weren't. And also having really amazing, I think, boundaries. And I will credit, his name is Adam. He's one half of Marla. Oh, that's something I haven't mentioned. Like Marla is what I do on the internet. That's like my kind of education side. He's literally a part of it. He would have been the tech help that I didn't have today. You folks were amazing though. But yeah, Adam was so good at boundaries because, when we got married and we got married on our 15th anniversary. So we took our time, and it was mostly because we wanted to have a party. It's a long story and that's not for today. But I think the thing is that every speech that was made at our wedding talked about how independent we both were growing up. And how we both kind of marched to the beat of our own drum, all of that stuff. And I think being really solid individuals really helped us kind of come together in ways that didn't efface who we were. And I think that him coming to the table, I think, as I mentioned earlier, is he came to the table saying this is what I do have on offer. This is what I don't. And again, we had already been besties at this point, for essentially once we got into CEGEP or that college sort of school. So probably from the time we were 16 to now 2 years later, we were really, really close. But I think that it was different where we started to talk about the more relationshipy, in the more traditional kind of escalator sense, and realizing that some of those things are not going to work for us. And so I think I have him in many ways to thank a lot for helping me queer the relationship. That's it. That's what we kind of nailed, is we queered relationships in the most authentic and literal sense from the start.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. That feels really good to have wrapped it in a little.
Yeah.
Well, and so brilliant that you're able to do that at 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there, right?
Yes.
To look around the world that's probably telling you this isn't how you're supposed to relate, other than random professor who just loves to come in and clickbait his whole class. But to be able to do that and then to go forward that way together, I think that's really impressive.
Thank you. Yeah.
The flip side of that question is the things that you did not nail.
Yeah. The biggest mistake that I made the earliest on, the things that I did not nail, some of it had to do with social programming. For example, as a young feminized human being, definitely so much of my self-worth came to me from my sexual desirability, right? Realizing that like our relationship didn't have the standard like, oh, the dude wants to get it on all the time and like the lady, blah. I mean, lady, I've like literally never a lady and I'm the most not one now, but more of a they'dy, I suppose. But I think that like shedding those parts of the paradigm, like the gendered expectations and moments where this very creative, loving person, just because we were snuggling, didn't mean that he wanted it to move further than that. And having to like really come to terms with my own self-esteem and self-value, and like being 18 and just being like, wait, hold on. So you want to do this part with me, but you're not in the mood to take it further. What does that say about me? Like, that was a shit show. And we navigated it with, I'm going to be honest, copious amounts of marijuana, at least for myself. At the time, it's unfortunately, I can't smoke pot even if I wanted to anymore. But at the time, it was a huge crutch and just so much conversation. So that was really hard and not my cutest look for sure when I was feeling like I couldn't get a grasp of like, where is my value, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a big one. But the other one I was going to say is I didn't know this until my next very serious long-term partner came into the picture about 5 years into our dynamic. And I met someone, fell head over heels in love with them. And at this point, it was shared with me by Adam, who was having a really hard time as this transition was happening with this new person. And he shared this with me. And I remember feeling like, I don't remember saying that, but I believe I said that at some point in the early days, I would have said that I will love many, but I'll only ever be in love with you. Oh, that's a tough one to navigate. And when I said it, it probably felt real true. But then here we were 5 years later, and I was very in love. For a period, I actually said that I had two primary partners. Because that, as you may remember, would have been the only language we were using back then.
Yeah.
And so I dated this other person for 6 years. And so while also being in partnership with Adam, and the pain that came from making promises about the feelings I would or wouldn't have in the future it was really devastating. I made a promise that I for sure couldn't keep. And, thanks to that massive mistake. And honestly, I could do like 17 podcasts about all my mistakes. I've actually made many videos about some of my big mistakes, like, not being aware of couples privilege. Like there's so many things. There's so many things that I've bungled. But, because of this sort of biggest early mistake, it really shows up for me in the work that I do with other people, when people want to set boundaries from the beginning that like, yeah, we can have loving relationships with other people, or we can have intimate friendships, but not like romantic relationships. And I often kind of get in there to be like, hold on, let's think about this. And I'll often share the story I just shared with you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I love that, Marla. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. And I'm curious, because you said that was sort of 5 years into this exploration. So I'm guessing at that point you had probably you had probably been in other relationships. Adam, I'm guessing, had been. And like,
Yeah.
what did the 5-year window up to that point sort of look like? That, because I think it's good for people to understand that, right? You can be doing this for a long time and still get knocked on your ass.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And like, that doesn't even get into like the first time I felt like soul shaking jealousy was after 13 years. So that's like you like 5 years was Adam got his comeuppance in terms of the jealousy stuff. He did not deserve it. I said comeuppance. It's not the right way to say it. But he got whacked by the green monster of jealousy real hard. After 5 years, I got to like live in this deluded fantasy that I wasn't a jealous person. For those of you who can't see me, I'm making air quotes. Like not a jealous person, but I think that, yeah, it took 13 years for me to get knocked on my ass. And at that point, I was already a therapist and educator giving workshops about that stuff. And like, oh, was that a humbling moment?
Right? Because then
Yeah.
you're having to untangle, like, what does this mean about me? Like a whole identity wrapped up in it.
Oh God. The like, I still hear myself thinking like, I can't feel XYZ because I, quote, signed up for this.
Mhm.
I can't feel like, oh, the invalidation, the marginalizing those feelings was so real. Anyway, but you asked a different question, so I'm going to go back.
We'll catch up to that one in a moment, because that one sounds
sure.
juicy too.
You were asking about the 5 years leading up. I'm trying to remember what was the question.
I mean, just curious, like like the first couple years of you diving into non-monogamy, like roughly what did it look like in terms of
Yes.
like going out on dates? Were you dating together, individually? Like, how did it sort of flow?
It was, so I was definitely the more more at the time. We've changed radically. Like, he used to be a super introvert. I used to be a super extrovert. We've both now met somewhere along the way in the middle as ambiverts. It's changed a lot. But at the time I was very interested in making new connections. I had a lot more, I think, capacity for new connections. And I was just like such a hypersexual person. Like I think I still am, but just with less capacity for life because I'm still alive this many years later, But I think the thing is that at the time I was much more interested in having more partnerships and let's be honest, like putting more notches on my belt, just like exploring just the exploring, and then, we were in university and I was meeting people. I was studying sexuality. So I was meeting all kinds of people in class, including a partner. You were asking, did we date together? It was right at the same time as that other partnership came on, like not long after that. I also met this like super babe in class who ended up being a mutual partner of myself and Adam for 2 years while I was also dating that other person I was in love with. Like, it was all the things, right? So definitely I was doing a lot of exploring on my own. I think he was doing a different kind of exploring. I think it was less about trying to think the first 5 years. Yeah. I think in those first 5 years I was doing more of it and he was super supportive of it because he was investing in a lot of like creative stuff for himself. And like he definitely dated at the time. I'm also just like trying to remember, to be honest. It's been a long time. But yeah, I think I was doing a little bit more exploring. It was mostly individually, but like things happened,
Yeah. So I think what you're trying to get at is there was context there, there was experiences there before jumping into this experience 5 years in.
Yes, very much so. But never in love.
Right.
Also, I just have to imagine I say imagine, having had enough experience at this point, sharing a partner that you're trying to both date.
Yeah.
That's an experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Triads are definitely like non-monogamy, like 10.0, I would say. I think we did okay at it in the beginning. I would actually say I think we did really well in the beginning, but it did not, I'm not going to get into the mistakes, but like the way that relationship ended, I will say is probably one of my biggest relational regrets. And I've learned a lot from it in terms of my thing about regrets is that if I can learn from a challenging experience and grow from it, then I don't have to regret it anymore. But I know that if I understood people the way I understand people now, if I understood trauma the way I understand trauma and mental health now, I would have behaved very differently then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful you said that because I think just personally, this is probably the hardest thing in the world for me to do because I can look back at my whole life with the lens and the perspective I have today and just beat the shit out of young Finn for like, why didn't you know all this stuff? And so just hearing you say that is just really, I hope gives people some perspective here that when we're doing this, you are going to mess up. You're going to hurt people.
Yeah.
And especially something like non-monogamy where the people, the thing you're messing up, there's a human on the other side.
Yeah.
And we're doing the best we can. And I don't think anybody really comes into this with a mindset of like, how can I take advantage of these people and hurt them? I think that's a rare person that you're going to run across.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, if we haven't had the opportunity to do some of the unpacking and deconstructing. This is not an intentional, but just incidental plug for my book, I guess. But the book that I've recently written that is coming out shortly, which we can talk more about later. But
Yes.
it's about paradigms that impact non-monogamous relationship, and with a specific focus on intersecting paradigms with mononormativity, right? And mononormativity, we're looking at the paradigm of monogamy sort of placed as the, I'm going to make a lot of air quotes that people can't see, but like correct, right, most appropriate or most ethical type of relationship structure. And the thing is that you don't have to go seeking that paradigm. It's there for you, right? It's on TV shows where there's a love triangle and someone just has to make a decision, right? Or it's on, it's in the like, are you bringing a +1 to the event? Or it's everywhere, right? It's everywhere. And it also plays back with, therapists being like, oh, you're cheating on one of your partners. Or, oh, if you were just monogamous, then you wouldn't have all of these issues, right?
Yeah.
And
Society messaging.
exactly. And it's just constant. And it doesn't even matter how much work I do in my own life to unravel the way those paradigms impact my life. They're still always there waiting to like snap at my feet. And so the thing is that for people who are coming into these relationships for the first time, if we haven't had the opportunity to do some of that deconstructing, and we haven't looked at the ways that, our preconceived ideas of how relationships, quote, should look, fit over or don't fit over what we're trying to create in our lives, there can be a lot of anxiety and a lot of heartbreak there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a great, summary of how to just navigate life. I think just we're human and we're going to be human.
Yeah.
Well, and there's so many, like you said, you don't have to go looking for it. It's fed to us all day, every day from TV shows, movies, everything is telling us this is the way to do it. And if you're not, all of our music is you're the one, and how, and to be able to find a way, again, I think to me, anybody who's figuring this out in their early 20s, late teens, in the face of all of the programming, to think that you're going to figure it out, for one, is nearly impossible. And two, that you're going to do it without hurting somebody, hurting yourself.
Yeah.
Good luck. It's just not real.
And I think what you're saying is true for all relationships.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we take the huge risk of being genuinely in relationships, like giving ourselves to relationships and to love and care, etc., right? All kinds of relationships.
Yep.
We are opening ourselves up also to the possibility of getting hurt or hurting other people. And I think for me, a big piece of this is not about, there's a thing when you become a therapist about like, do no harm. And I'm like, I actually don't agree. Not because I want to harm people. Let's be clear on that, right? But this idea, and you hear this from doctors as well, do no harm it puts us against a standard that is impossible. Because, for example, sometimes I'll meet somebody who's like, yeah, I want to be non-monogamous, but, I am a cis man and I'm fine if you want to date other women and femmes, but I'm not okay. Let's make a, one penis policy. Sorry, this is low hanging fruit, but like an easy example. But if I'm seeing that in my therapy practice, or people are leaving comments on social media on a video that I might have made about this, I'm going to say, hold the phone. This is actually really problematic. I remember once saying to someone in therapy, unfortunately, the perspective that you're bringing to the table is biphobic. Was that probably really painful to receive? Yeah. Did I feel that it was my duty ethically to say that thing because I was seeing the potential of harm being done? Yes. And so the thing is, this idea that like, I'm never going to cause harm, not just as an educator, but also as a person in relationships, that's going to happen. It's bound to happen if we really participate in relationships. So for me, what it really becomes about then is what kind of skills, strategies, and tools do we have to take accountability, to hold others accountable, to apologize, to repair when the ruptures have happened. That for me is where the sweet spot is at.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love
Like
it.
that's again human. We can't put ourselves on a pedestal and feel as educators, as therapists, or any type of person out there in this field, or just honestly in any field, you're going to cause harm. But it's then how do you navigate it after that?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's regardless of our
Profession.
professions, right?
Yeah.
This is, like you said, this is just life. This is relationships of any kind. This is our friendships too, right?
Mhm.
This is,
Mhm.
I'm going to take a risk in this friendship, and every day we take those relational risks. So yeah, I think I love this. And this is something, I mean, I love this because this is something I'm now learning in the last few years, right? That it's, my work has been, stop trying to be perfect, figure out how to not be perfect and still be in relationship with people, right? And that's where the like repair, the apologies, the, taking ownership without destroying myself.
Yeah.
To me, I think in many ways it's harder than being perfect.
Oh, yeah. It's again, this is just because I recently did the audio recording of my own audiobook. So I recently reread the whole book again. And again, it's a mini book, so it's not that long. But the point is that there's a huge part in the book that is about like thinking about the way we talk to ourselves.
Mhm.
How are we judgmental toward ourselves when we've made mistakes? But then also, how are we judgmental of others?
Yep.
So there's pieces and like kind of questions about like how do I explore accountability within myself and hold others accountable, right? Because I think that's the thing, right? We need these tools that again, you could watch 1,000 videos from 1,000 creators and read 1,000 books, but at the end of the day, like I think one of the big challenges I have is like, someone says something like, I'm trying to think of one that gets under my skin. Hierarchy is unethical.
Mhm.
I might be opening a can of worms with not that much time left for us. So I'm gonna try to tread lightly. But
Well,
when I
I'm
hear,
sorry, but you're dealing with us, so it's probably not going to be as light as you're hoping for. So,
oh no, I just meant, yeah.
It's
I
a
guess,
really important conversation,
Yeah.
so go for it.
sure. And like maybe it's a good segue for something I hadn't been planning but works out. Anyway, all to say. But I think the thing is that, so I've heard this a million times. All hierarchy is unethical. Now, I literally have given, and maybe will be giving another workshop all about this. I have many videos on the internet, in playlists on TikTok, or what they call highlights reels on Instagram. You can find my takes. But I struggle when I hear someone using an overarching, this is the only way.
Yep.
Now, whether I agree or not, let's say I did agree that all hierarchy is inherently unethical. My next concern is cool. So what do we do now? Because if you're telling me that this is the truth, and I'm someone new to non-monogamy or trying to bolster my non-monogamous practice, and I'm like, okay, hierarchy equals bad. Well, obviously, I'm not going to want to do hierarchy because if hierarchy is bad and I'm hierarchical, then I am bad, right? Like I'm not good at math, but this equation feels easy to me.
Uh-huh.
So the thing is that then it's like, hold the phone. For me, I'm like, if I'm going to make a statement about a thing that is or isn't functional, is or isn't good, bad, or otherwise, and I'm pretty careful with that kind of language because I'm not the boss of good and bad things. But my position is, how do I support people if they don't want to be hierarchical in their dynamics? How do we explain to them? How do we hold them in this? Again, you want to talk about a paradigm shift? The paradigm of hierarchy is baked into mononormativity. So what do we do with that? I think it's super, you want to talk about unethical? I think it's super unethical to tell people that the way they're behaving is bad with no alternatives or no explanation of how to rearrange and deconstruct the thing that they're doing that might be harmful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that because I think, right, no, it's perfect.
It's wonderful.
And it sets up, I think, I love this conversation. And this is one we've been digging into more, which is, yeah, great. There are lots of toxic ways to be hierarchical, and we have all sorts of theories on hierarchy ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But, right, let's say you just want to root it out completely. How the hell? Like,
Yeah.
how are you going to do that? And And what do you do until you've achieved, like, when have you achieved a pure enough version of non-hierarchy that you can now go and be in a relationship, right? There's no metric for it.
Yeah. Oh, it's so well said. Again, and especially I know I'm not a very I'm not a I don't know if you can tell from the way I chat, but like I'm pretty chaos loving. Like I'm not super structured, but I know so many people in our communities really love to have things clearly laid out, right? I love communication. Like I can communicate until I have no voice left. But the thing is, there are some people who are like, I need a blueprint. I need some structure. I need to know how to do this because they want to do it effectively. Right. And so, absolutely, like for those folks, what do they do?
Yeah.
I mean, for all of us.
Totally.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I'm curious for you and for Adam, and in your relationships that you've created, how have you navigated hierarchy,
Yeah.
and what has it looked like for you?
Yeah. So, okay, I want to say for the first maybe like 5 or 6 years, this is me like very loosely playing with time and my memory. My autobiographical memory is notoriously garbage.
There
But
will not be a quiz.
Yeah, there's no fact checking.
thank you so much. And unfortunately, the receipts are there. There are whole people who can say that I was wrong. But for the first, I don't know how long it took of being. So in the early days, okay, let's go back. When we first started doing non-monogamy, the prof that was telling us about it, the books that were out about it, it was all primary, secondary. I mean, do I know anyone who's ever said tertiary partner? No. Who wants to say that? But it was all in rank. We were defining our relationships like that. The language of non-hierarchy and the ethics of hierarchy was not a conversation that was being had at the time. And one of the things I love about the fast-moving pace of the internet and all the groups of people who have changed literally the language we use as sort of broader communities has been incredible. I mean, for better and for worse, our tools can go both ways, but so in the beginning, it was very much hierarchy for sure in the language we were using. And then probably just the way we were living it out as well. When I started seeing, and I dated other people, we dated other people, it was usually more casual. Again, I'm trying to remember who said other people and what that looked like. I don't know. We were always very upfront, or but I'll speak for myself now. Like I was always very upfront with anyone else coming in that I had this other partnership or other partnerships, whatever was happening. When I fell in love after that 5-year mark, I don't know how long it took before I was like, I think I have 2 primary partners. And there's like a minute where that's how we kind of defined the dynamic. And then what got really interesting is that, there was a minute toward, I want to say about like 5 years now, would have been 10 years between myself and Adam and then this other person. But Adam moved across the country to go to grad school. And I ended up moving. So I was in Montreal. I ended up moving with my other partner in Toronto. So we moved in together in a new city together while Adam was across the country. And so I had a nesting partner who was very much my very like everyday. And again, we didn't identify the word nesting partner did not exist then. They were the one. And I had roommates too, who I loved very much. So like, who knows what you wanted to call all these people. But, I had this person that I was living with who was, again, like I think that's when the language just started being like one of my partners.
Mhm.
And then Adam ultimately moved because then I got into grad school in Ontario. So he as he was finishing his, so he agreed to come move with me. Like it was a whole shenanigan. But we definitely like I want to say around that 13-year mark where I lost it because of the jealousy. That wasn't the only thing that happened. We started dating some new people together. Our lives really, we were finally we waited 11 years to move in together. So it's just like worth noting. And so I think that was the time when non-hierarchy became part of the conversation. I hadn't said primary partner in many, many years. But I think we really started living in a way where we started thinking about deconstructing hierarchy. And so it was thinking about like how we might have privilege in each other's lives. And when that like big jealousy stuff was going on, that was definitely part of it, right? There was a part of me looking for a certain amount of control when I felt like I was out of control, but also wanting my partner to be his own person, wanting his other partner and my other partners, partners at the time, but wanting them to not be like, I didn't want to be the kind of like a tyrant in their relationships, and thinking about like, what does it mean to have like equity came to the foreground. So I think it's probably been the last like, maybe like, let's call it like 7-8 years, where we've really been thinking about deconstructing hierarchy and like really considering how like the impact of our couple's privilege on the people who enter our lives, and how do we make space for them and their needs. And I will say that even in that process, we did not do it all perfectly, and I made a fuck ton of mistakes, period.
Yeah, well, and if you're open to like sharing like a little, what were some of the shifts you did start making?
Yeah. How did you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think some of it looked like thinking about the needs of new partners who were showing up in our lives, and also thinking about our needs, not as partners, but as individuals, actually, and as partners too, right? It was like, because it's very easy when we start dating, like, some or lots of new people, that it's like really easy to kind of forget that just because we live together doesn't mean we're dating. And so like making more active time to date and not just like do laundry and feed cats, etc.,
Yeah. Actually have fun together.
Yeah. That became something we realized like wasn't, I see it a lot with people who cohabitate. This happens. You can be monogamous or not, it doesn't matter. But like when you spend so much time doing practical life things, it's really easy to kind of overlook that, like, oh, wait, we haven't done something adventuresome together, in a while. But I think it was thinking about, the needs of other partners, right? Like, one of my partners she works 1,000 hours a week, maybe, and, and is a parent. So like there's different needs there and different availabilities that we have to consider, right? Then, my other, my metamor, who's also my ex, if you want to talk about like non-monogamy, like 25.0, that's it. Would not recommend. But also, right, like breaking up with someone while your partner is still going on dates with them, like that's really complicated. And also not wanting to say, like, not just not wanting to, not having the ability to say, you can't do this thing. Like the only time I've ever, like, we don't do veto. We have never done veto. There's never been a like, you can't see this person or etc. The only time I've ever said anything about one of any of my partners, other partners, and this isn't just true for Adam, this is true of my other partners as well, but it's only when I'm concerned about harm. Like when they are sharing about, a metamor and that they are causing harm. And the thing is, well, I was going through this breakup with my now ex Meta, which is many, many years ago now. But the thing is that I was like, this person wasn't bad. This person was not inherently harmful. And I was like, there's no reason for me to say that I'm concerned and that, they should not be in relationships. So it was like, how do I figure out how to take care of my shit while they still have a meaningful ongoing relationship? And I think, one of the ways we really bungled it is in the pandemic, which or in the lockdowns, like the pandemic has not ended, but like when the lockdowns were in place, and we live in Ontario where they were the longest in North America. So our lockdowns were intense. But it was figuring out, how do we create space for our other partners? What does safety look like? But there became a point where I was like, babe, what are we doing in Toronto? Like, we live in a tiny 2-bedroom with us and 2 cats, who are like dogs. We have dog-like cats in their behavior. I was like, what, we're either having total meltdowns at the grocery store. I'm having meltdowns when you're insisting that we use Lysol on everything that comes into our house from the grocery store. I was like, can we please get some space? And so we decided to get out of the city at the end of 2020. And that was a big one in that we didn't consult our other partners about it, which again, permission is not the thing we would have needed. But we sort of made this decision for us because we lived together. But what was interesting is that, our partners had different feelings about it and different reactions about it. And I think it really, when I think back about like couples privilege and the way that maybe we weren't mindful at that time, and let's be honest, we were all so freaking traumatized. Like, was anyone doing their best at that time? Absolutely not. But I think back now and I think about some of the things that have, come up in all of our dynamics since, because we only live about an hour and a half, depending on like away from our other partners now, which is not impossible. but it definitely changed the dynamics a lot. And realizing even things like that, like at the end of the day, it's our decision to make. It's my decision to make, right? But it's like, how do we consider the other people in our relationships and their needs as we're making these big life changes? So that was a big learning. And that's like 5 years ago, it's not that long ago.
Yeah. And that leads me to the question of like kind of what does the dynamic look like for you now today?
Okay. Well, today I live with Adam, as mentioned, who's away for the week doing something, a project elsewhere, but he's away. So I live with Adam and 2 house panthers. I have one partner. So we each have a partner that we met at the same time. So we met them all together. It's a very long story of like the intermingling ins and outs of things working, not working, etc. But fast forward, we both have other partners of approximately 8 years. So yeah, I guess they're like moderately long distance because they live in Toronto. I see my partner continues to be very, very busy. So we have this like, we call it kind of like low maintenance, high reward relationship. And it took me, what's super interesting, right? Like falling in love. Like I've only ever been in love with 3 people in my life. It's Adam, that other person I fell in love with, and this partner I'm talking about. And it took me 6 years to get there. I like woke up one day and I was like, I think I'm in love with you. And she was like, huh? I was just like, yeah. So yeah, I have this like beautiful relationship with her. And then Adam has this other very long-term relationship with my meta ex. And they have like, I'm not going to get into the whole polycule. We both see other people more casually. I recently ended a pretty brief but lovely dynamic that wasn't working out. He has some other sort of like more casual dynamics. And then of course there's like queer platonics. I have some like super close relationships with people who I don't necessarily have like sexual relationships with, who are like definitely, by any other circumstance, I would call partners, right? And I think there's a certain kind of like, again, a queer platonic relationship is not just about being queer and platonic, but rather queering what a platonic relationship would mean. And so I think those relationships are always worth a bit of a tip of the hat as well, because while
Definitely. Yeah.
I love that you clarified that, because that's a term that comes up on the show periodically, and I think people often hear it as it's queer and it's platonic versus like we're queering the meaning of being platonic, right? We can cuddle and go on dates, but we don't, it's not just we sit at the table and we just don't ever touch each other and there's no intimacy or connection.
Exactly. But so many people get so stuck on it when I'm like, yeah, some like people can make out with their queer platonic besties at the club or whatever. And people are like, that's not platonic. And I'm like, oh man, I've had so many not fights on the internet. Like I don't fight people on the internet. That's not really my brand. But like people have come for me because we get so bogged down in language. And I'm like, ooh, we need to get so clear about language in general. It's such an important thing for me. So yeah, definitely.
And it's fluid. It also shows like relationships with humans can be fluid.
Oh
and
yeah.
They can look different ways at different times. And
absolutely.
I just wanted to touch on too, I really loved what you were like, the sort of what you were sharing about the couple's privilege and about your hierarchy, and just I think that is one of those, the example of moving, I think is one that really comes up often that people sort of overlook, because it's one of those places where it's like, well, Emma and I rent this apartment, so when it's time for us to move to a different place, like we're the 2 people we consult. And to be able to say, again, it's not necessarily we're going to go looking for permission, but I think it's more about the conversations and what are those conversations, and checking in with people in our lives about, hey, what do you need? What would be helpful for you? What would be good here? And just, and I think it's just I love that you bring so much nuance to these, right? That you're not it's not dogmatic. It's not, well, you did it wrong, you're a screw up and you're terrible. It's, shit, we're in a pandemic and we're trying to figure it out and we've never done this before. And we went through it and we got through it. And then we realized, oh shit, our partners had some feelings and we talked about those. And maybe next time when we move differently.
Yeah.
But it's not, it just feels like you leave a lot of room for grace and freedom and compassion for yourself and the people in your orbit.
Thank you. That really means I feel really seen when you say that. And I think it's some of the feedback that warms my heart the most when people like I talk about nuance all the time. I think context is so, so important. And like, is it the ADHD? Is it the this brand of neurodivergence? But I think the thing is also like, I've been peopling for a living for so long. And I understand, right? Like the intersections of different things that make us who we are, right? Like thinking about intersectional frameworks, right? Which again comes from Kimberly Crenshaw, and it has to do originally with like anti-racist practice, and like I'm not going to get deep into the theoretical stuff, but I think again and again that's what my book talks about. That's why I didn't call my book, non-monogamy and mononormativity, because I was like, mononormativity is just one of the paradigms, but what does it overlap with, right? And the thing is that like, okay, someone's socioeconomic status is going to impact the way that they're in relationships. Someone's, racial profile, or how they are, their like socially perceived race is going to impact the way that they engage in relationships, the culture we come from, our religious backgrounds, our age. You mentioned before, and I mean, I can go on with all the different things, our size, etc. Right? But the thing that you mentioned before is like, when young people, like it's always so impressive when young people are doing this work of deconstructing. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, when I have people in their 50s coming to me being like, okay, so I've been married for 24 years and we're thinking about opening up the relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, I'm just like, buckle up. Like, we got this,
Yes.
Think about how much longer you've been entrenched in those paradigms. And so I think for me, it's like, I just have learned that shaming people into acting a certain way is not usually helpful. It just causes them shame. And also, I I have learned and seen and been alive and fucked up enough to know that I am not the boss of fucking anything. I am wrong. I am wrong all the time. I tell people all the time, you don't have to be monogamous to me as a therapist. Like if what's happening isn't working, I'm going to help you find someone that does. If I've caused harm, hold on, let's talk about it, right? Like I'd like to be accountable and like say sorry, etc., right? And like work on that, but like and repair. But I think the thing is that like I am not for everyone and not everyone's going to agree with me. And I think the thing is that if I start to let myself believe that, oh, I've been at this for 20 years, therefore I am somehow above someone else, or like when people think that non-monogamy is somehow more ethically wonderful than monogamy, like I always say, I'm not pro non-monogamy, I'm pro healthy relationships. And so I think, yeah, thank you for seeing my appreciation of nuance in my take, because again, it's like, if I want to be an educator in this field, and again, I didn't want to be, I just became one. It just became the thing. Like enough people were asking me about it at the bus stop that I was like, I might as well just like do this for a living, But the thing is that it's like, if I want to be an educator in this field, I need to listen to the voices of other people who are not just educators, but also people trying this out, or people who have more experience than me or less experience than me. I didn't learn all the newfangled terminology about non-monogamy from people with more experience. It's the new generations of people practicing who are asking these like phenomenal questions and like shaking and rattling the things that we thought we were doing so effectively. So like, yeah, the nuance is kind of key.
Yeah, it is. Brilliant. And I love too, you just said like, yeah, the folks who are untangling or trying to figure out how to deconstruct a 20, 30, 40-year partnership.
I always say that's one of the, like, I almost feel like that is the hardest thing. One of the hardest things. I know there's many, but I feel like somebody who starts young and learning, like that's great and everything, but deconstructing a long-term monogamous marriage and trying to open it, you're just trying to undo so much.
Yeah.
Well, and then somebody rolls in and says, oh, by the way, couple that's been married for 30 years, no more hierarchy.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. We'll do that by Monday.
I know.
Yeah.
My recent take on hierarchy, by the way, and I'm like breaking my own rules, but my recent take is I'm over it and I'm not fucking talking about hierarchy anymore. Because the word hierarchy is actually messing with our community. And I think it's actually causing more damage. And I think we need to use our words, friends, to talk about things like I talked about couples privilege. Let's talk about mononormativity. Let's talk about jealousy. Let's talk about, my control needs or like my fears and my
What
anxiety.
are the components of a healthy relationship and what are the components of an unhealthy relationship?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, again, a take I've sort of been taking in more is I think often hierarchy gets conflated with priority and so much of our lives that it's like if you prioritize one thing over the other, you're toxically hierarchical. You're like,
oh my God. But the other thing that then gets me though, like everything you're saying is so important because I love when people are like, well, I have kids, so I have to be hierarchical. And I'm like, actually, you are allowed to prioritize. You legally need to prioritize your human children. That is actually your job. You signed up weirdly for that choice in a way, but priority is not, if you look at the definition of hierarchy, which I get into all the time when I'm trying to explain it, there's nothing in there about having priorities. But then there's this fun thing, because this is another word that I choose not to use when I'm trying to make points anymore, but here I go, is using the language of egalitarian. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. Hierarchical and non-hierarchical. I know a lot of people don't like using words that are non-meow meow. Right here we are as non-monogamous. Like, what's a better word? I haven't found it yet. We haven't found it yet. So here we are, non-monogamous. Yep. But I understand that, egalitarian is another fun word. But how many people, I've had to do this so many times, toxic non-hierarchy is also a vibe. Toxic egalitarianism, a lot of people think of egalitarian and they're like, oh, everything is equal. I have worked with multiple people, whether it be in, a therapeutic alliance or, talking to people in different contexts online or like in a workshop where people have shared stories that someone is insisting that someone get divorced in order for it to be totally equal. So two partners have to get divorced so it can be egalitarian. And I know people have done that by choice, and I totally support that. If that's what makes sense for you, like go for it, please. Situations where we need to spend equal time together, situations where we need to, we have to all live together for it to be egalitarian. And I'm like, girl, sorry, and that's gay girl, not gendered girl, but like, girl, I struggle to live with anyone. I've had enough roommates to know and lost enough dear friends as roommates to know that could the problem be me? Am I the drama? It is possible. But I've learned that in order to not have that drama, I'm not going to live with any of my other partners. Like I struggle living with my cats. So yeah. But the idea that that's what's going to make it non-hierarchical, that's what's going to make it egalitarian, and somehow that's what makes it automatically better. Like, nah. Sorry, that was not my most professional.
No, I'm spot on. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's perfect to lead us into the professional. Maybe talk a little bit about your work, and then so we don't lose anybody, because I'm still curious what knocked you on your ass 13 years into non-monogamy.
We're going to come back to that.
Around jealousy. So,
I love that we planted unintentional clickbait. So it's like, you got to hold on. Hold on.
It's intentional. It's very intentional.
And anyway, okay. So a little bit about what I do. I mean, I've talked a lot about it so far, right? So I am a therapist. So I work and I keep my therapy work kind of separate from my education stream. So I sort of have two different businesses. So there's, it's for a long time I didn't tell the world my real name, but it's on the cover of my book. So Marla Schreiber, which incidentally actually translates to writer in German. So my last name is literally writer or author, although worth noting that it changed from Schreiberg, which apparently is screaming mountain, which actually I think is more appropriate. I'm going to be honest.
That's great.
So I'm Marla Schreiber, by day, Marla Schreiber, therapist, but then by night or by whatever other time of day, I do this education stream. So I run workshops. I do a lot of education online. This actually came up in the pandemic where I realized that I moved away from the city. I had been doing, when I was in Toronto, I was doing a support group for the consensually non-monogamous for a while. And we called it that. I just say non-monogamy now. That's, again, we'll do it on another podcast. But all to say that I was doing that. I was really in community a lot more. And then all of a sudden I was living in the woods in the middle of a lockdown. And I was like, what do I do with myself? So I started taking up space online, talking about this. And now I do that as the only way I can really make sense of it or substantiate it is that I think of it as my volunteer job, because it is literally the only way to make sense of how much time I spend posting content on the internet. But then, I spoke at a conference one day, which got me the very fortunate opportunity to write a book. And so I wrote, what's nice about it is I am a very, very slow reader. I learned that this is not just a Marla thing, but also many folks with ADHD struggle to focus while reading. So what's kind of nice is that it is a mini book. So it's a quicker read. It's kind of like a very long essay. You can probably tell that I'm not known for being concise. So having a word count was challenging. But I had the opportunity to write this book, which is coming out on August 1st, and it is available August 1st, 2025, and it is available for pre-order already. But so it's part of so More Than Two has been re-released by Andrea Zanin now and Eve Rickert. And so they gave me the opportunity to do one of they call it the More Than Two Essentials guide. So it's little baby books with specific topics highlighting non-monogamy, sort of Canadian authors. So that's where I'm at now.
And what is the title of your book for anyone who's interested?
Yes, thank you. It is Non-Monogamy and Defying a Paradigm. So that is the title of the book. And also, if I didn't say, my online work is all as Marla. So polyamory, but with my name.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, links are in the show notes for anybody who is listening. And quick note that this is coming out today. If you're listening on the day this came out, it is August 6th. So you shall now know that you can go order your book. You don't have to pre-order it. Go get yourself a copy and read it. And also, if you want to join us for some extra work, or not even work, for some extra joy, we'll call it extra joy.
Extra learning.
Extra learning. Marla's coming tomorrow into our community to teach a workshop on hierarchy, the thing that you said you are not going to teach or talk about, but we've convinced you somehow.
It's because you're cute. It's definitely because you're cute.
Excellent. Well, we'll take it. We'll take it. And so the topic is something we haven't come up with the exact name because that's how we roll, but reframing hierarchy, something to that effect. So if you want more on that, you can find more information in the show notes as well. But is there any other work stuff that we need to weave in for people here, Marla?
I think that this is mostly it. It's the Marla, which is education. I do collabs sometimes. I work with different people. I also, again, I mentioned before that it's kind of my volunteer job, but what I do there is it's not cheap to work with a therapist. And I know that, which is why I provide a lot of free education online. So specifically, I'm getting more on YouTube and all the places, right? But definitely TikTok and Instagram. I have a lot of a huge library. And I don't just talk about non-monogamy. I talk about all the things. Let's be honest. I'm a whole ass human being. So are you. And I appreciate your understanding. But I also have I think those are free resources for you all the time. And sign up for my mailing list. I send out a once a month little updates, but also promos and things happen there. So that's all through polyamarla.com.
Yeah.
Again, links are in the show notes.
Yes. And thank you for, I would just say too, the generosity, right? I think there's people who follow us on social media see the sparse amount of posting that happens because for anybody who posts at the level that you do or some of the content creators out there,
I don't know how you do it.
I put out one Instagram post a month and I'm like, God damn, I need a break. So I don't know how you do it, but thank you for your generous use of your time for our benefit.
Thank you. Also, me neither. And, when I go through periods of burnout or, if I travel for a minute, which doesn't happen often, but if I ever go away or I get involved in something, the algorithm hates when I take breaks. So I'll just it goes up and down, but I try because it is a labor of love. I really do appreciate having community there, especially because I kind of live nowhere. So it's nice to have a community somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
So true. Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And we're going to bring it back to the question that we were going to talk about is what happened like 13 years in.
Okay. Without getting too into it, because obviously everything is like the nuance is big on this one. But loosely,
No, I want to make sure like it's not necessarily about what happened. I think it's more the recognition that even 13 years into this,
Yes.
we can get knocked on our asses.
Yeah.
yeah. Like so knocked on the ass. Absolutely. What happened was, so my partner Adam, we now know he exists, who like he's not a limelight kind of person, like he has his own stuff. So I try to just be like, I try to be kind with everyone that I'm partnered with, just about, confidentiality in their own identities and stuff. But like he exists and he knows that. So he and I had met some folks sort of at the same time, and there was this one person in particular that we were both building a relationship with, but very differently, very, very differently. And so they really, like, I want to say, like, as a witness, like, fell in love super hard and fast, like, really, really, like, beautiful, big feels, really upfront. Whereas myself and this other person were developing something at a very different pace. And it just felt different. And I think what was happening is that, and when we jumped into this, it felt like it was very like, fuck yeah, let's do this. And everyone was into it, and I think that happens a lot of the time where you have almost that toxic positivity, like new relationships, so much fun. But I think at a certain point, I started seeing the differences that existed. And then I started marginalizing my own feelings, right? When they were having longer kisses goodbye. They were having their more dates together more frequently. They were having things that just weren't, and it was interesting because it took, I don't like, when you're just like, if people knew how many therapy dollars I spent on them, like, oh my goodness. So it was in time with my own therapist where she actually pointed out to me that, oh, wait, they actually, like, yes, Adam and I lived together and we had a certain kind of couples privilege, but they had a certain privilege that they weren't aware of, and that I was kind of in a marginalized position within the dynamic of the three of us, even though we were never all quite in a triad. So again, remember I said this is like 29.0, like it's very complicated, but that was what was happening when it wasn't just jealousy, but it was because like jealousy is, I could talk about jealousy for days, but I think the thing is that, there was jealousy, there was resentment, there was shame, there was embarrassment, there was fear, anxiety, there were unmet needs. Like there was so much comparison, like thief of joy, all of these things happening at once in a way that I didn't even know was possible, which was, again, even harder in a certain way because I'd been delulu enough to believe that it wasn't a thing for me.
Yeah.
So I think that's the like TLDR version of this story.
Yeah. Yeah. It shows that, again, we're human and that things can come up at any point in our lives that will knock us on our ass.
Yeah.
And they will.
Yeah.
Another fucking opportunity to learn.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, one thing I just want to maybe throw out there is, we talk about this knocking us on our asses, but that jealousy isn't bad, right? Feeling it isn't bad. It doesn't need to be a thing that we're ashamed of. It doesn't need to be a thing that we hide from. But I think it often gets talked about in a way that if you're good at non-monogamy and if you're doing it right and if you're good at life, if you're good at relationships, you won't feel jealous. Like there's so much pride in not feeling jealous that I think it keeps us locked in its grips even longer because we won't talk about it, we won't admit it, we won't acknowledge it to somebody just to say, hey, like you don't need to change anything you're doing, but like it's fucking me up right now and I'm just struggling.
Oh, it's super, super well said. And I think the thing is that like there is nothing that dysregulates our nervous system. There's nothing that throws us off the emotional deep end like abandoning our own feelings, like marginalizing our own feelings, right? Dismissing our own feelings. And I could do a whole other podcast or 10 about this, right? It's and it connects a lot with attachment theory, which, is like, again, it's a whole other can of worms, but this idea that like, how do we treat, like, for me, I think about these tough feelings as like young children who want a seat at the table, who want our attention. How do we treat those young children versions of ourselves who are struggling, right? Are we ignoring them? My tendency is to dismiss them. ugh, like, go sit down. Like, it's okay. Not right now. No, like, you've done too much work to have to deal with this. Like, no, go. It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Right. It's not fine. And when I dismiss those parts of myself, I imagine the little kid, like, they're mad. And what are they going to do? They're going to take the permanent markers and they're going to draw all over the wall.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Well, luckily, I don't have any of those. That's how. No permanent markers on my walls. Emma, you're laughing pretty hard.
None?
Well, thank you, Marla, for this lovely conversation. And I look forward to bringing you back on because I feel like this is part one of many of wonderful conversations we get to have. So thank you for being here today.
That's so kind. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Before we let you go, is there anything else you wanted to share today?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's a million things. Is there anything else I want to share today? Maybe a thank you. And maybe I think in connection to what we've been talking about, I think something that's important is like diversifying the ways you learn. There's learning from reading, there's learning from doing, there's learning from listening, right? But I think a lot of the time, and something I've been seeing come up more and more, I talked about earlier, right? The like hierarchy is bad as an example or is unethical. And I think, who are you listening to? Who are you paying attention to? Are they reflecting back values that feel supportive? Are you, like, who are our elders? And just choosing wisely, and like holding people accountable, but also being accountable. So yeah, that's, I think, what's tip of mind right now.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you again for everything. And we're excited to be in each other's orbit and for more.
And go get a copy of Marla's book.
Yes.
And read it and enjoy it. And we'll talk to you. Well, we'll talk to you soon, Marla.
Absolutely. Also, if you're an audio person, you can listen to me reading my own thing.
Excellent.
Yay!
I love that. I love when the authors read their own work because you get to hear it from their voice.
Yes.
Yeah. Except it was like an AI generated version of my voice because it went through like 3 or 4 different editors who aren't me. So I had to read my voice, but like the editing style guide of the publishing house that I went with doesn't use, for example, Oxford commas. I'm an Oxford comma person. So it was like reading my voice, but with all my like last commas removed. So I'd like trip up. It was quite funny, but it is me. It is me.
Love it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So,
thanks so much.
Of course, yes. Get a copy, listen to the book, and actually come tomorrow to the workshop so you can find out more information about that in the show notes. And we talked about it in the intro. So thank you again, Marla, and have a wonderful afternoon.
You too. Take care.
And we're back. Thank you so much, Marla, for coming on the show, sharing your story, and for all of the amazing work that you do. A quick reminder, you can find links to all of Marla's work, including signing up and pre-ordering their new book coming out on August 1st. Over on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, click on the podcast hub, and in the show notes there, you can find links to everything. They're also in your podcast player.
Speaking of other work that Marla's doing, you can come join our workshop with Marla.
Yes.
Marla's leading a workshop in our community next week called Reframing Hierarchy. A quick reminder, as we talked about in the intro, and as you probably heard there towards the end of the show, or towards the end of the episode, we published this episode a week early, so all of the stuff that we were saying about tomorrow and the book already being out and all of that, that's not true. We lied.
The book comes out August 1st, and the workshop is August 7th.
So you still got time to join, and you still got time to pre-order your copy of the book. So please go do that. And a huge thank you to Marla from my side as well.
And with that, a reminder that our next upcoming community in-person retreat is October 3rd to the 5th. Mark your calendars. Come join us in the San Francisco Bay Area that weekend. We would love to have you. And I think that's all. Next week.
Don't just mark your calendars. Join the community. Get yourself a ticket.
And come
join us.
Sign up.
Yeah.
Yes.
The time to mark your calendars has passed. It's time.
That's true.
Time to come on.
It's only 2 months away.
That's right. So yes. And then next week we have a fantastic conversation with actually one of our community members, Derek.
Yes.
It's such a good conversation, such a good interview. We hope to see you next week. And until then, we hope you have a wonderful rest of this week.
Bye everyone. Thanks for listening.